Or if someone can just text Kevan to ask him if he's getting on, because the whole daf today is pictures. And even if he's not, for people who have the art scroll, that will be helpful. If not, you need to take a mishnayos with pictures, because today's daf without pictures, it won't go, Pashut. Yeah, Rabbi Mendel, can you text Kevan, ask him to get on? I'll wait another minute before we start. Okay, Danny's here. That will be good. All right, Chevre, if Kevan doesn't get on, then Gabbai, you'll be the picture person, because that's what we need. The whole daf today, we need. And let's go. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi Kalayim Pei Gimel Halacha Aleph. We are learning today Daf Chav Dalid. We left off on Daf Chav Dalid, Amid Aleph, the second word on top of the Amid, Hoyala. What we will do today is that we're going to review the first halacha that we had in this Mishnah, and we're going to add a very important detail, that everything that we learned yesterday is going to be following the shita of the Rash. All right, the Rash is one of the Rishonim. He was a Bali Toisvis. He lived in France, like most of the Bali Toisvis, who wrote a Perush on Mishnayos, the Rash. And we're going to, in contrast, the Rambam in his Perek HaMishnayos. So there's a foundational machlokas between them, and that will play itself out in the entirety of the Mishnah, beginning with the first case that we learned yesterday. So we're going to review the first case, and we're going to just chazer quickly how the Rash learned it, and then we're going to relearn the first case of the Mishnah, ligamre different, learning it kishitas harambam. The machlokas between the Rash and the Rambam is going to get one halacha, which is gavaldik, which is big. It's big because it's going to be very relevant in the whole Mishnah, in every single case. From the many hatadim that we learned in the previous chapter, in which even though, on one hand, kilei zeroim is a doiraisa, right? You can't plant zeroim mixed with each other, too close to each other. We learned of the heter called the roish toir. The roish toir means, in the most literal, blunt application, that if you have, let's just use different formats, the format of a diamond adjacent to a box. So you have the ending of one plantation in a point, in a triangular, going into a line, the side of a box. They are allowed, according to some Rishonim, even to protrude inside the other. Bevadai, they can go all the way touching each other, because the observer, and that is what's important, midoiraisa, not only midrabanan, the marasayan, when you look at it, you see it's not mixed. Kalai means mixed. It's not mixed. It's different formations. According to the Rash, which is the way we learned the Mishnah yesterday, our Mishnah is speaking about a unique patch, a patch in which you're going to plant yerakos / vegetables. The patch's size is 6 by 6 tfachim. We're going to learn today, once we go over the first case and chazer Rash and see how, according to the Rambam, it's going to be completely different. We're going to learn another case in the Mishnah in which we're going to be speaking about a patch in which its plantation area is 8 by 8 tfachim. But these will be the cases of the Mishnah. We will certainly not be referring to a patch that's less than 6 by 6, as we'll learn soon in our Mishnah, that if you have a patch that's less by 6 by 6, you can only plant one type, right? A 5 by 5 can only have it at one type. But beginning with the 6 by 6, everything that we learned yesterday, and let's go right into it. I'll go right into it. What did we learn? We learned that even though when you have a soda of Yerakis, we learned in the previous chapter that the space, the gap, the unplanted area between Aleph and Beis, which will allow you to plant different types of Yerakis and Aleph and other types in Beis, is of 6 Tvachim width. In our Mishnah, we're learning, that's when you have a whole soda. But if to begin with, you only have a small patch, like in our case, a 6 by 6, So the quantity of vegetables in each area of the patch is minimum, mamish minimum. You only have to have a much smaller gap. And again, just to quickly review that even though there was a machlekes rishonim, which we're not even going to get into, we'll need another whole picture book for that. Some understand that you need to have a total of 3 tefach gap between one vegetable and the other. That's not the way we're going to be learning our Mishnah. We will be learning our Mishnah according to the Rash, that you need to have only 1 tefach and a half. Okay, and what's the logic of the 1 tefach and a half? As we said, because Begashmi is, according to Chazal, one vegetable derives its nourishment from a tefach and a half area of land around it. And we know it's not about taking nourishment. It's not about Yanika, but it is about Yanika. Because when people know that when there is that amount of distance, one is not being nourished from the other, that allows people to see it as separate. When people know, they're taking Yanika from the same area, if people see that, if people know that, then it gives the appearance of a mixture. So 1 tefach and a half could be applied that every vegetable needs a tefach and a half. So I have one over here and I have one on the side. I don't want for the areas to overlap. I need 3 tefachim. That will be one approach of the Rishonim, which is not the way we're learning the Mishnah. We're learning the Mishnah that all you need to have is a tefach and a half. That means if I plant a vegetable here and I plant another different species of vegetable over there, even though they are overlapping in the area, as long as one is not protruding its yanika into the other vegetable itself, maspik is good enough. And therefore the Mishnah opened up that when you have an area of 6 by 6, and again, if you can put up the picture, diagram A, this is only according to the Shita of the Rash. The Rash holds that you have to have the format like you have in diagram A. Now, what's the chiddush over here? The chiddush over here is, like we began to speak, that there is a heter called Rosh Toir. And if you were to apply the heter of the Rosh Toir, even though you are in a very small patch, you would be able to use a lot more of the 6 by 6 tefach, 36 square tefach. You can use a lot more of it. And the greater goal, not the halachic goal, the human goal is to use the most for your plantation. Elama, of course, the Torah doesn't allow us to plant kalayim, so we have to leave the separation that we need. But the goal here would be to leave the minimum separation necessary when a person wants to plant more than one species, and to be able to use as much land as you could. The Rash says that in a small area, you cannot use the heter of a Rosh Toir, because since it's so small, when people look at it, they won't be able to see that one is separated from the other. So everything needs to have the 1.5 tefach, and therefore, when the Mishnah said in the beginning that you can plant a total of 5, the 5 that we are talking about will be as in diagram A. And again, just to remind everyone that you could ask a kasha, and the kasha will be that why would you not be able to do it as if in diagram B? What's the mile of diagram B? That if you plant it as you have it in diagram B, you will be having the 1.5 tefach in between every single separate type of vegetable, and you will be able not to plant 5 types, but if you want, you can plant 9 types. And the answer for that will be, as we'll begin today in the Gemara, and Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis, that actually we have a source from a pasuk. It's taka only an asmachta. It's a pasuk from Yeshayahu that in an area of 6 by 6, you can plant 5. In other words, 5 and not more. So that's the max. Because if it's more than that, also there's a seichel. It's going to look all mixed up, even though you are organizing it and you're leaving the spaces. At the end of the day, it's a very small. Think about it, 6 tvachim. So it looks like a big mingling if it's more than 5. Okay. Now the Rambam. Now, Danny, if you can go. That's we before we go to the next case today. I want to show you diagram C, diagram D, and diagram E. So we have 3 other ways that one can learn the Mishnah. The Rambam says that the heter of Rosh Toir is allowed to be applied. And to appreciate that, I'm just waiting for the diagram C to come up. Maybe it's Gavaldik. Then if you can just go out to see C and D. C and D, if you can make it zoom out, not zoom in, zoom out, the other direction. Okay, so sign us up. So look at the mile over here. We're going with the same thing. The Mishnah says only 5 types. If you are allowed, and L'Rambam, you are allowed to use the heter of the Rosh Torah, the mila of diagram C over diagram A is that you are using a lot more square tfachim from this 6 by 6 for plantation, which will be the goal. Now, the one on the top, you see, and the one on the top the corners can touch with the ones on the side. The ones on the side can even touch with the one on the bottom. The one in the middle, its corners can go all the way touching to the ones on the side. That's every circle you have in diagram C. The reason why we are allowed to get that close is all because of Rosh Torah. Now, not only can you plant it L'Rambam like you have it in diagram C, which if he did the hard work over here, the art scroll, right? So you can have 24 tefach out of the 36. Let's go better. Go to diagram D. In diagram D, it's the same idea that you are using the heter of the Rosh Torah, not circumventing the necessity of the tefach and a half. You don't even need a tefach and a half. And when you make the area in the center of the 6 by 6 larger and you diminish the areas around, it's the same idea. But why did we make another diagram? Because here you have the advantage that you are planting 27 square tfachim out of the 36, which is even more than diagram C. So that's what the Mishnah is saying. The question will be, just like we said before, we had a kasha on the Rashi's understanding that why didn't the Mishnah give you the option of diagram B? Why did you not have the option of 9? And again, the Rambam is always trying to use the max area for plantation. So that will be the answer. We're not looking for 9 because according to the Rashi Ilio's theoretical diagram B, which we can't do for the pasuk that we mentioned, you're using very little space. Because between every single box, you have a tefach and a half of empty space. You don't want to give away so much empty space. But diagram E, l'chu'ura, would have been good. Because diagram E, right, you are packing it up a lot more, and you are managing to put in there not 5, but 6. And the 6 of diagram E is using a lot more space than diagram B. Now, as we will see, that actually the Tana Rabbi Yehuda in the Mishnah will give this option. Very good, Dan. Thank you, Dan. In other words, I want to make what I would like to clarify before we go on for people to chap the Rash and the Rambam, that the kasha that we asked, that why didn't the Mishnah give the option of diagram B, is also on the Rambam. But there's a practical answer, because you'll see throughout that the Rambam, and by the way, the Pnei Moshe, you have look at the Rashirilio, they follow the Rambam. Now you can appreciate the pictures that they put there. That the reason why they would opt not diagram B is because they have another practical goal, which is, the guy wants to plant many types of vegetables, but he doesn't want to lose all the land. He wants to use the land. He has to give up some of it for the spaces in between, but he wants to minimize that. And that in itself would explain why don't we give the option of diagram E? Because in diagram E, how much tfachim are you using for plantation? Only 18. So why would a guy use 18 if they can use 24 or if they can use 27? I get it that he's going to get, instead of 5, he's going to get 6. But a farmer would balance it. I'm getting another type, but I'm getting very little of each type. I'm using too little of the land. So now you're chapped. I think this
it could be that the other type worth more.
What was that?
It could be that the other type would just worth more.
Very good. And a chanami. So we will see clearly in the Mishnah that you could know L'Rambam, Rabbi Yehuda, you will see in the Rabbi Yehuda, not the Rambam. Rabbi Yehuda holds you can pack in more. You're not limited to the number 5.
According to the opinion that we're limited to 5, would you say that according to the Rambam or diagram D, you're really getting the max that you could get out of that 6 by 6 space?
That's right, and that's why many Rishonim, either when they're those who use the heter of Rosh Torah, all you'll find, whether it's in the Pnei Moshe, whether it's going to be in the Rashirilio, who's already the Achreinim, they either have diagram C or diagram D. Not as beautiful as the way we have it, I just want to tell you that diagram. What you're looking at the Rashi earlier, we didn't get there yet. But they're going to be using, basically, there's a goal the whole time. Since you can use the heter of Rosh Tard, so you circumvented the need of a tefach and a half, not completely. We'll get back to that. Amachaya, you're getting more space.
Is it a minimum of 5 types or
5? That's what the Mishnah says.
Maximum of 5.
Maximum of 5.
So
Make it another one. No, let me just say what David is saying, because the Gemara is going to say. In other words, if I have a patch of 6 by 6, very good. Let's go. Beilan Ambam, Beilan Asherilio. David, let's say, like you were saying, I only have 2 types. So then plant, take a box, go milmail lamata, go down with 1 type, leave a tefach and a half of empty space, and then go another one. And then you'll be maximizing the space. You'll be using the 36 square tefach minus the tefach and a half across all the width.
Why do you have that on D9?
Because even though the Rashi is not using the heter of the Rosh Tard, so you always have to have the 1 tefach and a half. If you would lay out the way it is in diagram B, you can put 9 different types, because each one is a tefach and a half away from the other. So in other words, this is a question: why did the Mishnah say 5 if you can put a 9? Okay, very good. Now, guys, now we're beginning. There's no more words of introduction. The whole Mishnah, there'll be different scenarios in which we're going to learn it Larash Shadilyo, and then we're going to learn it according to the Rambam. Guys, this is an opportunity of our lifetimes. Mamish, who learns this? We're very fortunate. Okay. Now, the Mishnah is speaking about another practical. You can make many heichatimsas. You can make many scenarios. The Mishnah obviously was speaking about a scenario that was common. So let me say by heart what they would do. Yeah, first of all, it's common when you plant vegetables to make small patches. Of course, you also have fields, but there are times that, like Akira was saying, you have an expensive herb, then you have a kitchen. You want to have, you don't need that much, but you want to have all the varieties. So you have little patches. 6 by 6 was a classic little patch. What many people would do is that they would build a border around the 6 by 6. Guys, the border would not eat up from the 6 by 6. Remember this. The border would be outside the 6 by 6. The border would be, let's say, just a elevated little mound of earth. How big would the border be, guys? The borders that they would build around these patches was normally a tefach of height and a tefach of width. Actually, sometimes if someone would have to go and water the vegetable patch, I know that a tefach is a very small amount of space, if you can just imagine it. But you know yourself that if you have to just step over and lean, not to lose balance, one leg can be over there, the other leg is going to be closer to water. A tefach is enough for you to place your foot. So this border was actually used practically, is that they wanted to make a patch that's a bit more. How much was the bit more? Let me just add. They would go on the other side of the border, on the other side, outside, they would have another tefach of each side of planted space. Now, if the middle is 6, David, and around the border, there would be another tefach of space, right, all the way around. And I would now measure from one side to the other. How many tefachim would you have?
3 plus 6, 9.
I'm going to guess 8.
So David said, you're right, Rabbi David. It's really 9. The reason why we're speaking about 8 is because no one planted on the border. It's not 9. It's not 9. It's 6, 7, 8. That's 10. I'm sorry, it's 10.
Wait, 1.5 plus 1.5 is.
It's no. It's 8 by 8 of planted area. It's really 10 by 10. Even though people shouldn't get stuck on that, because when you have 6 outside the 6, you have a tefach border. A tefach border on each side is 7, 8. Outside of it, you have another tefach of planted area, 9, 10. Thank you for that picture. Leave that picture up there. And now, no one is going to be referring to the next case as a 10 tefach simply because you're not planting on the border. Okay. What we're calling the next scenario 8 by 8 is because you have a side of the border. You have a total of 8 by 8 tefachim for plantation. The pasuk that we quoted before, which is, let's go with the Rash now. We're going back to the Rash, which is limiting the amount, even though you can have 9, but you can only have 5. That's only when it's a 6 by 6. The moment it's not a 6 by 6, you're not limiting the outside area into any number. So here again, the goal of the Mishnah will be, what will be the maximum amount of species that you can plant in the format of 8 by 8, but again, make no mistake, it's not 8 by 8 the way it sounds. I'm just repeat it for the final time. It's 6 by 6, surrounded with a border. The border really is a tefach height. The tefach height is very important here, as we'll see soon according to the Rashi earlier. And a tefach width. And outside of it, you have another tefach strip all the way around. That's the next case. So let's read it inside. And even though the Mishnah says the words gavoya, I always want to make it very clear. The border was made out of clay. The border was made out of earth itself. And it was high at tefach. And look inside the marafulda, the gamberoich by tefach. I just want to make, you'll see why we're saying that. Okay? So it's wide at tefach and it's tall at tefach. So now, let's learn this according to the Rashi, and then we're going to go according to the Rambam. Diagram A, guys, is the Rashi, and if you can just already put diagram A and B, I'll be able to explain the issue. The diagram B will be a kasha. So says the Mishnah, in the entirety of the 8 by 8 / 10 by 10, you can plant the max of shleisha asar of 13 species. The next words that we're going to say will be words that will be difficult to understand, and they'll be gevaldik according to the Rambam. But I'm going to read the words. The Mishnah writes the words. Thank you. How do you? What's the 13? Shloisha al kol goyvel v'goyvel, 3 on each border. And I'm going to suggest that the 3 on each border is dafke referring to the empty spaces beyond the border. Look at the picture, diagram A. How many empty gap spaces do you have beyond the border? On each direction, you have 3. How many planted areas do you have? Right? You can't say 4 in each direction. Guys, 4 times 4 is how much, David? 16. It's not going to be that way. The number that you have all the way around the border will be 12. You're not going to have more than that. Okay? Because if you're going to count on the top, Rabbi Mendel, you have 4. But then when you go to the side, there's only 3. Then when you go to the side, there's only 3. Then when you go up, there's only 3. You understand? You can't count the same thing twice. You have a total of 12. But again, it fits with the word shloisha al kol goyvel v'goyvel and ve'echad be'emes. So I want to read like this. Number 1, guys. Let's first begin. You have to learn with the diagram.
Sorry, is the Rambam on this page?
Don't go with, the Rambam is all here. First, the diagram A is the Rashi. Let's stay focused. This will make everyone unable to get it. We're going to go with the top one. According to the Rashi, you begin in the top corner. Let's go top left. Or you can go top right. No, let's go top left. Being that you have to have a tefach and a half, you're leaving a tefach and a half, whether you're going horizontally, whether you're going vertically. Now, for you to maximize the space and yet leave a tefach and a half, according to the Rashi, even though the top left and the top right will have the size of planted area of a tefach by a tefach, but the other 2 can only be 3/4 of a tefach physically for you to fit everything in there and meeting the requirement of leaving a tefach and a half. Okay, that's number 1. And then you go all the way around. So even though the boxes are not of the same size, but you can pack in there 12. Now, look at the border, guys. See the border? We mentioned the border has a tefach of height. If you remember also, we learned in the previous chapter, Gaval de Kavart. The Mishnah says that if you have a cella, remember that? And the cella is 10 tefachim high, you can plant on either side of the cella. Then we learned in the Gemara, a big chap. What happens if the cella doesn't have 10 tefachim high, but it's 10 tefach long? Then on those sides of the cella, you can also plant on either side. Because it doesn't make a difference whether the space is in the height or whether the space is laying down. We'll apply the same thing over here to the border. The border is a tefach. The border is a tefach. And by the way, the border is a tefach with, right, that was the marafulda. And I'll go further. Perhaps. By
the way, in the photo, it doesn't really look like it's a
I know that because the foot was going with the logic that I said. In other words, what was bothering the marafulda is is that if the border doesn't have, Danny, a tefach of width, you'll look that the inside area of the 6x6, when he put down only one type, he put it purposefully, not by only leaving a half a tefach till the border. There's only a half a tefach to the border. Why did he leave only a half a tefach to the border? Because the border itself is a tefach. So the Marafulda holds that the border has to be a tefach of roichav. That's the top Marafulda, in order for you to have a total of a tefach and a half. The art scroll didn't make that configuration. I'm guessing because he's relying on what we learned in the last chapter, that you can use the height for the width. If you can use the height for the width, so if the height is a tefach, Danny, I don't care if it doesn't have a width of a tefach. He did it on purpose. I know that. You have a tefach and a half. You have the border. The Mishnah. The words in the Mishnah is gavul gavoya tefach. Let's go with that.
I was just clarifying that the picture wasn't matching that part of the explanation. But okay, that's fine.
The Mishnah is matching the explanation that I'm giving.
The picture is 8 tefachim. If you count the boxes, it's just 8 tefachim. It's 8 tefachim of space.
Okay, the Mishnah is counting 8 tefachim because the border takes up zero width. Zero width. Right, very good. I'm very happy. Okay, so let's go with that. The Marafulda says it's wider, and we're going to go with the logic we had in the last chapter that you can use the height for the width. Same idea, because it's a separation. It's all about marasayim. People look at it, they see there's a border. The border is high a tefach. It gives you the tefach. All you need is a half a tefach. Doesn't matter. Let's go weiter. Let's go weiter right now. We'll get back to that before that. Now I want to say another very important thing over here. One can ask a question. Guys, all that Rashi earlier. You have to leave a half a tefach. Okay, zum gesund. A half a tefach, guys, from each side. If you leave a half a tefach vacant from each side, what's left in the middle to plant? 5 by 5. Let's go look inside diagram B. We're not going to use Rosh Torn. But even if you don't use Rosh Torn, you can make 5 species formatted in a 5 by 5 in a way where there's a tefach and a half from all sides. Not only a tefach and a half, you can make it, some of it even has 3 tefach. So the question will be, why did the Mishnah say, according to the Rashi, that when you can put the maximum of 13 is 12 around and 1 in the middle? Don't forget again that Rambam was always looking to use the max space. The Rashi didn't take that approach. He said, you have to leave it. Why can't you still?
So it should be 18.
Very good. 17, 12, and 5 is 17 in my math. And the answer is, this will be important, that the Mishnah's allowance of putting 5 species in a 6 by 6 is only because it's a 6 by 6. And in a smaller area, again, it's all about that. The smaller it is, even though you're leaving the space, it's a big taroivus mixture. And therefore, you cannot put anything more than 1. Akan Rashirilia. So you have Shloisha, Kol Goivel, the Goivel, the Echad, the Ems. Now, Rabbi Danny, if you can please put up a diagram C. Now, there's 2 things that the Rambam changes from the Rash.
6 by 6 means less than 6 by 6, you cannot pack that many in?
You only have 1 type, according to the Rash. He says that befedish.
Less than 6 by 6, you can have only 1.
Yes.
No.
The Rambam doesn't need to say that. The Rambam is always looking to put the maximum that you could. And number 1. Number 2, the Rambam holds that you use the heter of Rosh Torn.
Maximum of species or maximum of
use
space?
Maximum of space. Use the maximum of space. That's what a farmer would want. So now look inside diagram C. First of all, the beauty of the Rambam's layout, I'm saying with the words of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says Shloisha al kol goivel v'goivel, that on every side you have 3. In diagram C, it's not empty space 3. You have planted area of C.
And each one's a full tefach.
And each one is a full tefach, but being that the ones around the border are not formatted b'rosh torn, look at the beauty of it. So here you see that Rambam holds they take a half a tefach and a half. So the area between 1 and 2 is a tefach and a half. The area between 2 and 3 is a tefach and a half. Now numbers 1 and 12 and numbers 1 and 4 can touch because the corners are touching. The corners touching is rosh torn. The one in the middle, right, is touching 5 and 11 and 2 and 8 because Reish Toid. So it's a lot simpler. The beauty of the layout of the Rambam is that you are using a lot more space than the layout of the Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because you can use the heter of Reish Toid.
Really using more space.
You're using really more space.
So it looks identical to the.
It's not identical, and it's a
Rashli that's here. This one's
The Rash really the outer.
no. Okay, no.
Rush.
That Ash, guys. When you learn Mishnayos, not here. In the Mishnayos, there is a Mefaidish that's a Bali Toisvis, Rab Shimshon, right? I think whoever, maybe someone can Google. The Rash is Rab Shimshon ben Avram. When we learned Cheder, Rab Shimshon ben Avram was one of the Bali Toisvis. He lived in the sands. He lives, who knows? He lives somewhere in these Frenchies. How's that they have? Somehow they put out these great Bali Toisvis, and he wrote a page on Mishnayos. And he's the big, the Rash. Okay, that's what. So we're talking about the Rash versus the Rambam, and the Rambam is not in the Yad HaChazak. Guys, we learned Yad HaChazak. We didn't have all these cases. The Rash and Pedish Mishnah.
Shimshon
Of Shantz, yeah, that's it. That's the Rash. That's
time.
not the Rash. The Rash is an Achron. That this Rash is from the Rishonim, even from the earlier.
Not to be mixed up with the Rush, which is not the
Not
Rush.
to mix with the Rush. Thank you. I'm happy we said that.
This Rush really looks identical to that.
This Rash Shirilio is following is the Rambam. The Rash Shirilio is not the Rash. The Rash Shirilio is following the Rambam.
Wow.
But he writes in Befedish that he's following the Rambam.
Got it.
Okay. Now let's go weiter. That there is one exception. What's the exception? That loyita roish halefes betoy chagoivel. No, it's in the case above. You have a lefes plant, and we're speaking about in English a turnip. And the turnip, right? There's like this bulb-shaped part that's eaten. If Kevin would have been here, he would have had 20 pictures for this. So he says one may not plant the head of a turnip inside the border area. Okay, why? Because it fills up the border area with large leaves, and they're going to look that it's going to be mingled with the species adjacent to it.
That's that square border outside of the 6.
This is only as the Tosfos Yontiv writes befedish in the new case that we learned today, because when you have a tefach and a half, David, I'm not concerned that the leaves are large, a tefach and a half away. But what, even according to the Rash Shirilio, what happened in this new case in diagram A? What happened? That the inside area, guys, from the ones outside has how much space separation? A half a tefach. And maybe even let's go further. Dafka, not the way the Marafulda said. The border wall is not wide a tefach. I know that it's tall a tefach, but it's not wide a tefach. So here you cannot pack in the inner space with a lefes because it's going to mingle with the 12 species around it. All about Marasayan. When you leave the right amount of space, it doesn't bother us. We learned in the last Pedic only the last Yavanis, even Rabbi at ultimate Paskin. Not over here. Here we're speaking about a very small area and you're packing it in. You can't pack in a turnip in the middle. Very good. Now let's go to Daf Chav Daled Amud Beis. Wawawi. And again, this is so good. We're going to learn Rash, and then we're going to learn Rambam. Begin with the Rash. Rabbi Yehuda Oimer. Rabbi Yehuda holds that I have two, let me say this by heart. According to the Rash, to the Rishon, the Rash, Rab Shimshon, Rabbi Yehuda argues on two things with the Tanakama. Guys, halt up. Number one, that the Rabbi Yehuda holds that when you have a veggie patch, all you need to have is one tefach of separation, not a tefach and a half. That's step number one. Step number 2, that whenever you have a border wall, forget about the Rosh Hashanah. The Rash doesn't even hold of Rosh Hashanah. The border allows you to plant on each side of the border. Why? Same logic. Let's go with my logic that we're learning, not like the Marafulda, that the height of the wall, like we had in the previous chapter by the cellar, is like the width of the wall. According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to the Rash, you only have to have 1 tefach of separation by vegetables in a patch. So if you have a border wall that's govoya tefach, you have a tefach. Since you have a tefach, all you need, you can plant on either side of the border wall. Based on these two steps, Rabbi Yehuda is going to hold that. Now I want to add something over here, guys. Number 1, in the Reish of the Mishnah, how many species did the Tanakhama allow you to have? 5. No, in the Reish of the Mishnah. All the Rashi, we don't use Rosh Toir. So we began today with diagram A. Now we're going to the new diagram A. Just look to the inside. You look in the inside, he will allow for you to have a 6. How do you have 6? So if you would look inside, you're going to see that you have to see if you're going milmailo lamato, and it's small. If you're going from top to bottom in diagram A on page 24B1, the space between the top right and the middle right is 1 tefach. You see that? That's the key. You only have 1 tefach. You only need 1 tefach of empty space. Same thing between the middle right to the bottom right. Same thing with the left.
Why only 1 tefach?
Because Rabbi Yehuda argues with the Tanakhama Dani with 2 din. And listen to me. The most important din is that instead of you needing to have a tefach and a half, you only need to have 1 tefach. The Rash consistently holds that even according to the Tana, no Rosh Toir, but if you only need to have 1 tefach, and we're not limited now to the 5, so you can put in 6.
Are we learning that halacha from the fact that he says you can plant 6, or he says it somewhere else clearly?
No. Shisha ba'emsa. Now, what's really happening will be, Danny, is that what Rabbi Yehuda see that the Tana, the Rabbi was mekatzed in his lashon, as the Rambam writes in the Hagdama of Yad HaChazaka. That the Rabbi Yehuda will also hold that the area surrounding the border cannot have more than 12. The difference between Rabbi Yehuda and the Tanakhama would be how much space of around the border are you going to pack in with vegetables, right? So if you remember, in the Rash you had very little. We said that you began with a tefach, but then the other little cubicles around the border, each one was only 3/4 of a tefach by a tefach for you to have the 1.5. Now that the Tana Rabbi Yehuda is Zajac, that you only need to have 1 tefach separation. So look inside diagram A, it's Gavaldik. There's a total of 18. It's not just that you have 6 in the middle. It's much more than that. Is that the area around the border, according to the Tana Rabbi Yehuda, is filled up a lot more. Because all you need to have is 1 tefach of separation.
He doesn't hold by Rosh Toir?
He does not hold of Rosh Toir. The only area where now you have a chiddush is that since Rabbi Yehuda holds, like we're saying, that you only need to have 1 tefach, and again, let's add, the height of the border is a tefach, the height of the border of a tefach is as if you left it with a tefach. Look inside diagram A, and you'll see that by the corners, if you look at that which is planted within the border and without the border, they're adjacent. But not because we're using the heter of Rosh Toir. That's the key. Befeidish not. For Haraya, there are other parts of the area inside the border that is going parallel to the plantation patches outside the border, parallel, and they're also each one touching the wall, because the wall is the tefach. Gavaldik.
Why is it gray though?
Doesn't matter. I don't care about the gray. It's
you don't plant inside that.
You plant wherever it's colored. You're planting wherever it's white. It's not planted.
That's what I'm asking. In the border, you're planting in that.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
That's not some tefach.
No, it's not, David.
What do you mean? The border.
The sins, the nachamo. Listen, that's where you got stuck before. The border's height is a tefach.
Yeah.
So we learned in the last chapter that the height can be like the width. That's the whole vart over here. Now let's go according to the Rambam. So according to the Rambam, that you have the heter of Rosh Toir. Here is where we already learned today that according to the Rambam, why can you not pack in 6? You could pack in 6. And in other words, the Rosh Toir is what's the reason why Rambam you can pack in diagram B. Diagram B is only because of Rosh Toir. In other words, the Rambam also agrees that Rabbi Yehuda holds you only have to have a 1 tefach. But the way the Rash formats the 6 inside is where you have a tefach. The Rambam formats the 6 inside in a way that you don't even need a tefach by the Rosh Toir. But by 1 second, look inside diagram B, aside of the corners that are allowed to touch because of Rosh Toir, what about the other boxy area? Turn your head to the slant. There you have a 1.8. Oh, now I want to add something. According to the Rambam, Rabbi Yehuda holds you also need to have a tefach and a half. That's the key. According to the Rambam, the Rabbi Yehuda holds you need to have a tefach and a half.
That explains why the outside has much more space than according to the Rash's picture.
Thank you, Danny. Very good. So very good. So I stand corrected. That's a whole different. So everything that I said, these 2 dinim, 1 tefach separation, doesn't go according at all. Doesn't go at all. Rabbi Yehuda is saying, don't give me 13. Don't give me 13. In other words, he argues with 1 nekuda. That don't say you can pack in much more. And you have a 6x6 inside. It's not a 5, but you can use the whole thing up. Now the kasha on the Rambam is, why not diagram C? Why are you only putting in 6? Why don't you put in 9 using the heter of a Rosh Toir? That's the chap that he's bringing out over here in the art school. Why not diagram C? The answer is because according to the Rambam, even Rabbi Yehuda holds, you need to have a tefach and a half. And even though the points of the diamonds that are touching inside diagram C are allowed to touch because of Rosh Toir, the points that are touching with the boxes around the border, Rosh Toir, but inside the 9, right, there's 4 empty spaces. And he made the cheshbon that if you lay out 9, in the parallel parts of the diamonds, you only have 1.4. 1.4 is not good according to the Rambam, even according to Rabbi Yehuda. Wowie. You have to have 1.5. Masha Enkin, the Rash holds that the whole vort of Rabbi Yehuda is, you don't need to have 1.5, you only need to have 1. Look how big these arguments are. Ha. And now we have another 2 minutes, and we're going to chapanayim, and we're going to just learn the first line of the Gemara. The Gemara wants to know, let's go back to, guys, I want to say it like this. We learned the whole Mishnah, Rambam Rashadilio. I don't know how, this is the first time that I remember learning this. I forgot what I learned over there when I was between over there and over here. And okay, the next piece, we can again go Rash and Rambam. If we have to choose one or the other, we're going to go L'Shitas or Rash. Okay, it's a lot of information to hold. So let's go. The first thing in the Mishnah was, in a 6x6, you can plant how much? You can plant 5. Plant. Says the Gemara, that where do we get that from? And the answer is, this is based on a pasuk in Yeshayahu. Whoever has the Torah Oid Hashalom Aleph, I'm going to read outside Balped, I'm going to read it from the inside, but you listen to the Torah Oid. Ki ka'aretz toitzit simcha, just like, right? Like the earth gives forth its simcha, right? Its plants. Gana refers to a vegetable patch. Gana means a garden, but it's referring to a garden in which you grow vegetables. And like a garden that zeru'eha, that causes its seeds, beloshin rabin, to sprout. So zerua is 2. So says the Gemara, zerua, and miut zeroim v'shnayim. So somehow, because of miut zeroim shnayim, you come to 5. This is such a good line. The Yerushalmi spoke that way. And then the Babylonians say, what are you talking about? If the minimum of seeds are 2, fakir, this pasuk should indicate you can only plant 2. You have to leave a tefach and a half, l'kula alma by the Tanakama. But maybe the Torah is telling you that if you have a 6x6 little patch, you can't plant more than 2. It looks all mixed in together. Plant the top, leave a gap of 1.5 tefach, and plant the bottom. So either you can read this Gemara as the statement Yerushalmi is Zerua means 2, and you should chap how 2 become 5. Or in the Talmud Bavli, the Gemara is going to ask a kasha. It says over there Zerua. Zerua means 2, so 2, not 5. So that's the kasha. You can read it as a statement or as a kasha, and the Gemara is going to explain, God willing, tomorrow. Daf Chafei. No. That from 2 means 5. You'll see how 2 means 5. You have to have a. We're not there yet, David. For that, you have to come tomorrow.
You said it.
No, we didn't say it yet. I'm just saying that there's 2 ways of people. Some people learn the Gemara, not a kasha. How do you know 5? Because it says Zeiru Ehom and Miut Zeiru Shnayim. In Yerushalmi, that was enough for people to chap. We are a little bit underdeveloped, or a lot underdeveloped. So now we're going to have to go through. Hold on, 2 does not mean 5.